Welcome back to the Anfield Exchange, and today we're going to be talking transfers. Look, we think Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to be leaving for Real Madrid. I'm going to be basing this video on Van Dijk and Salah staying at the club, which I think is probably the most likely outcome. It's not been confirmed with Trent yet, but we're going to be looking at potential right backs that we can bring in and cover that position. Firstly, I think we need to take a look at where the sort of vital areas are that we need to improve. For me, we've been screaming out for a left back all season. We need to obviously replace Trent. I think we need another midfielder. Salah's staying, so we probably need another striker. And yeah, I think those are probably the key areas. We're going to look at other areas as well. Centre back we could possibly do with a little bit more depth, just because we've got Gomez and Canate that do tend to pick up injuries throughout the season. So yeah, we've got a lot of work to do this summer. Even more so if Salah and Van Dijk were to leave. I don't think that's going to happen. Hopefully, we get an announcement soon that those contracts have been renewed and they've signed a deal. So first place we're going to look is at left back, and for me, look, we've managed to get through this season. We're top of the league. We look like we're going to win the league, but there's been a problem all year at left back. Now, granted, recent weeks, Robertson has probably played better than he has for the first sort of 6 months of the season. I think he would be a good backup. I think he's a good option for a backup, but he just can't play every game. He can't play every game in the new season. I think he's getting to that point where he needs to be rested a lot more. And I think the drop-off when we bring Tsimikas in, it's too big. For me, Tsimikas he's not first-team quality of Liverpool. I don't think he ever will be. And I think this is potentially the right time to let Kostas Tsimikas leave. In terms of replacements, look, for me, there's one guy. I don't want to bring anyone in who isn't of the quality that Robertson has shown us over the last few years. And for me, that's Milos Kerkez. It looks like potentially that deal might be happening. We've got a lot of rumours flying around on social media. It looks like there's a potential deal to be done there. Whether that will involve Kelleher, maybe, I'm not sure. I did see that Bournemouth are very interested in extending the deal for Kepa and possibly making that a permanent transfer. Hopefully not, because then we can possibly use Kelleher in the deal to get Milos Kerkez. If not, maybe Ben Doak, someone like that we could use as a potential exchange. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, for me, Milos Kerkez, I think he's brilliant. He's been good at Bournemouth for a good few years now. He has an aura about him. He seems to have an aura, and I think he's ready made for Liverpool. To be fair, I think he's very available to come into the team. He doesn't pick up too many injuries, and I think he would add so much to this team, especially when you consider what we're losing from the right back position by letting Trent go. Yeah, so for me, Tsimikas, I'd be happy for him to leave. Again, Bournemouth will probably be looking for a left back. Is that something we can do? Put Tsimikas in the deal, just try and spend a little bit less money bringing Kerkers in. I'm sure Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards will be exploring all avenues in terms of that. But yeah, for me, one option, Milos Kerkez. You've got to get him in. Next position I want to take a look at. Again, one that we've probably had issues with all season. I think it's probably been more evident later on in the season, and it's a striker position. We've obviously got Nunes, we've got Jota. Slot has experimented with Diaz as a striker, possibly because he doesn't see what he wants in Nunes, and obviously we can't keep Jota on the pitch, which is a problem. So, I mean, firstly, outgoings. What do you do with Nunes? What do you do with Jota? For me, I don't think you can let both of them go. And it's a tricky one, because if I'm going to keep one, seeing what I've seen recently from Jota, I think Jota is really struggling. I think these injuries are starting to take the toll. If I wanted to keep one, I would probably keep Nunes. The problem you've got is it looks like Nunes potentially will be going to Saudi in the summer and will get quite a hefty transfer fee for him. So you haven't really got the option of keeping Nunez because he could bring in 75 million, whereas Jota might bring in 30 million because of his injury record. Nunez on paper is entering his prime. And look, it hasn't worked out for Nunez at Liverpool. I still really like Darwin Nunez. There's nothing to say that he won't go somewhere else and absolutely tear the league apart. I'd still like to see him in the Premier League, if I'm honest. I'm not sure if that's something that can work. But again, like we talked about with Tsimikas and Kelleher for Bournemouth, look, there's a lot of interest in Isaac at the minute. Whether that's something that FSG will look at, because you're going to be looking at spending quite a lot of money to bring Isaac in. It's not really our model to pull in like the finished article. And I think Isaac is not far from the finished article. But if you can go for Isaac, is it something you can do by trying to get rid of Nunez, put him in the deal? Obviously, Newcastle have had some interest in Quansah. I think they had interest in Gomez last year as well. So there's options there as well. For me, I think we are probably more likely to be looking at Hugo Ekitike from Frankfurt. He's had a very good season at Frankfurt. You could say a breakout season. His name's been bandied around for a few years. I think, I'm not going to lie, I've not seen too much of him, but from what I hear, it sounds like he's Isaac 3 years ago. So that's probably a more realistic move, I think, for Liverpool, where we'll bring in a younger striker than Isaac and try to develop them into one of the best in the world, like we did with Salah, like we did with Mane. My worry personally, there's a lot of links at the minute. I think David Ornstein put a tweet out that Arsenal are seriously interested in Gyökeres. I think Gyökeres is as close to the missing piece of a puzzle for Arsenal as you can get. I think if you do bring in Gyökeres, or even Isak, because Arsenal were in for Isak, I think you bring in either one of them two strikers, and Arsenal all of a sudden look like they could go on and dominate the league next year with one of them guys up front. My preference would be that Arsenal sign Sesko. I think Sesko is a good striker, but I don't think he's going to put up the numbers that Isak or Gyökeres would. If Arsenal bring in one of those two players, I genuinely believe we have to spend big on a striker and get the ready-made model, basically. If Arsenal were to get Gyökeres, I think it leaves Liverpool very little choice other than to go for Isaac. So that's something to look out for as well. Let's see what Arsenal do in the transfer window. But yeah, I think it's a certainty that Arsenal are going to bring a striker in. What level they bring in, it's up for debate. Also, another one that's been linked to Matheus Cunha. I like Matheus Cunha as a player. I think there's a few sort of red flags with his temperament. I think he's shown that at Wolves. Now, is that something that can be curbed? Because, look, I think we tried it with Luis Suarez. We brought Luis Suarez in. We knew that he'd bit a player when he was playing for Ajax. Luis Suarez then went and bit Ivanovic, and he also bit Chiellini in the World Cup as well. So we knew he had that streak to him. Now, did Suarez do that to try and manufacture a move? I believe so. Could Cunha be doing something the same? Do you know what I mean? He's had a few incidents recently, and it looks to me like he's unhappy at Wolves and he wants to move. Now, the problem for me with Cunha, I think Cunha would have been the perfect player for Jurgen Klopp. I think he's identical to what Roberto Firmino used to offer for Liverpool. And I think personally that's more of a signing that Liverpool would make if Salah was a little bit younger and he was still making those runs in behind the defence. I don't see too much of that anymore. Salah seems to play more in front of the defence. And I think that's a signing that would work well if you play in that false nine position and you've got pace on the wings, which unfortunately we don't have. So I don't see that deal going going ahead. Another one potentially that could move to Arsenal. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I don't think he would be the one to fire Arsenal to Premier League glory. So yeah, we'll wait and see on that. I'm sort of veering towards Isak, but obviously well aware that that's going to be the most costly, and we all know Michael Edwards likes to try and get a deal. So see what happens with that. Centre back position for me, it's a little bit iffy because on paper, when all your players are fit, again we're basing this off Van Dijk and Salah signing. So when all your players are fit, you've got Van Dijk, you've got Konate, you've got Quansah, you've got Gomez. You've even got Endo that can potentially play there as well, if needed. But you've got 4 good options there. The issue you've got is Gomez and Konate will both spend time out of the team. Quansah probably as well. Van Dijk's the only one that you can rely on and say, yeah, he's going to play all the games next season. But even so, Van Dijk's getting older with age, so we'll have to wait and see. I would like us to sign a centre-back. I don't think it's our biggest priority. I think there's a lot of areas in the team that we need to try and get resolved first. So we'll just wait and see. If you are going to bring in a centre-back, I think you're probably not going to spend too much money. It's going to be a low transfer fee and potentially somebody that can just come in and play backup. But like I said, we have got depth on paper, and we've also got Endo that can play there. So again, wait and see on that one. I don't actually think we'll do anything at centre-back in the summer. Time will tell on that one. Now, midfield. Obviously, Slot came in last year in the summer, and the sort of first player he was looking for was holding midfielder. Zubimendi was the one that was close to getting over the line. Nobody expected Gravenberch to come out and do what he did for us this season. He's been brilliant. I think he's tiring a little bit, as most of the team are. It's a grueling season. I think. Oh, one of my cameras has just died. I think there's a solution to this that sort of solves 2 problems. I think that I mentioned it on my last video. I think you can potentially use Szoboszlai in that role. So that will give you the depth of Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai, Curtis Jones. You'd also then have Endo, James McConnell. So plenty of depth in that position. But you can also use Szoboszlai, McAllister and Curtis Jones in the more advanced midfield position as well, which I think gives you plenty of options. The one thing the midfield is lacking for me is creativity, and I would like to see a creative midfielder brought into the team. If you look at the likes of Arsenal, we've got Odegaard. Man United have got Fernandes. Chelsea have got Cole Palmer. Man City have got Foden. We haven't really got that creative midfielder, and I think that's potentially what we're lacking. I think we all expected Szoboszlai to be that, but obviously we've sort of witnessed him this season becoming more of a workhorse. He seems to be doing more and more running to try and cover more Salah for what he's not giving us in terms of that distance covered. So for me, I would like to drop Szoboszlai a little bit deeper and let him continue doing that running, but just bring in some sort of creativity to help those strikers sort of fire the goals in we need to win the league. In terms of a few options, it's tricky. You've got the likes of Danny Elmore. I'm not sure about that one, whether that would be realistic, because I think he's happy at Barcelona. He's getting game time at Barcelona. I think they managed to obviously get him registered. But then you've got young players, Charles de Ketelaere at Atlanta. He's a potential sort of similar player to Odegaard, I would say. So that's something you could potentially look into. Now, what the figures will be on that, I'm not sure. Obviously, we've had interest in Xavi Simons in the past. Again, another potential option. He's at Leipzig. That's where we got Szoboszlai from. So there's that history there of sort of transfers. Same with Konate as well. Is that a deal that we could possibly look at? I think Xavi Simons would be a very good player for Liverpool. I think he would be that creative force that would probably take us to the next level that we'd be looking for. Again, time will tell. An option closer to home. Now, I really like this player. I've not seen a player like this for a long time. A player that just runs at defenders, and that's Morgan Rogers at Aston Villa. Now, if Aston Villa do get Champions League football or Europa League football, would Morgan Rogers want to leave? I'd like him to come, but I do think Aston Villa will probably be looking to receive quite a high transfer fee for that. So again, possibly something that we wouldn't venture into. But yeah, for me, I would really like to see a Morgan Rogers at Liverpool and see how that works. In terms of, obviously, the big one, the right back position, it looks more and more likely that Trent's going to be leaving. We will certainly need to strengthen in that position. For me, Conor Bradley will not be... I would rather... I think Conor Bradley has earned the opportunity to be the first team right back, but I think the drop-off from Trent to Conor Bradley, it's too big for me, and I think you need to replace Trent Alexander-Arnold and try and bring in somebody that sort of softens that blow. And I know Conor Bradley will do that. I'm just a bit worried about his recent injuries. He's had a few injuries. I think if you are going to give Conor Bradley the nod to get the Trent job, the Trent position, you're still going to need to bring someone in anyway. So I've sort of got two options for this. I say two options. So the first one is Jeremy Frimpong. Now, there's a lot of talk in the media about Jeremy Frimpong being Trent's replacement. I'm not sold on this one. I think Jeremy Frimpong is a lazy option. When you're talking about right backs, I think he's a lazy option. I think he's a good right back. I don't think he's a level of Liverpool right back. I think he's similar to Kyle Walker in terms of he's got a lot of pace and he can get himself out of trouble, but he can also put himself into trouble as well defensively, which is what we're just getting away from that now with Trent, with him leaving for Madrid. I don't want to go back to that and watch a new signing get turned inside out by Jeremy Doku when we play Man City. Do you know what I mean? I would like a more defensively sound right back. Now, there's another option, and for me, I like the sound of this. You can play Conor Bradley. You can play Conor Bradley as Trent's replacement. There's a young right back, 18 years old, from Porto called Martin Fernandes. If you haven't seen anything of him, I will be doing a video on this later on in the week where we solely do a deep dive into Martin Fernandes. He is a player that on paper looks very similar to Trent. The numbers are similar to Trent's numbers in terms of his passing accuracy, long passing. There's a lot of similarities here to Trent. He is only 19 years old. I think you could do this deal relatively cheap, and I think you could have him as a backup to Conor Bradley and just give him a few years to sort of get into the swing of things, into the club, and sort of just start to make that name for himself. And it gives you the opportunity as well to see how Bradley can adapt and how Bradley can develop into being a first team right back. It gives him the competition, and then you've also got this player from Porto who potentially could be a first teamer for us going forward. Like I say, I'm gonna do a deep dive into that later on in this week. I'm gonna be showing you some of the numbers, some comparisons between Trent and and Martin Fernandes. But yeah, I think that could be a potentially a clever option for us, and one that would sort of solve a right back position between him and Bradley for a good 6, 7, 8, 9 years, depending how we get on. So yeah, I think there's a lot of work for us to do in the summer. Everybody knows that. I think the board know that. Arne Slot knows that, and that's if Salah and Van Dijk stay. Again, there's no guarantees. I'm checking my phone every day, hoping to see the contracts extensions signed, sealed, delivered. We're still to wait on that, but we'll have to just be patient still and see if that gets done. I'm hoping it does, because I can't imagine how our summer will go if we have to replace Van Dijk and Salah as well. And yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with Trent. Let me know what you think of the videos. Let me know if you agree with some of the signings, if you disagree, who you would put in place. And yeah, keep an eye out for the Martin Fernandes deep dive at the end of the week, and I'll see you on the next one.